Good morning and welcome back to World Talks, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Stadia Jastrzębska. And now we turn to Ukraine. On the ground, the fighting grinds on, and at the same time, Ukraine has been a major topic at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. So what's the situation inside Ukraine right now, and what are the key takeaways from the UN gathering? To help us take a closer look, I'm joined by Rostyslav Khotin, Senior Ukraine Editor, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Good morning, sir. Delighted to have you with us.
Hello, Salih.
So let's start with the latest from Ukraine. Breaking news this morning, a Russian drone attack struck Zaporizhia right in the early hours of Saturday. 9,000 residents without electricity. Fears, of course, about the nuclear plant. So what is the current situation there?
Today's strike shows that two tendencies at the same time. One, to terrorize civil population and to strike energy infrastructure of Ukraine, so the people will not have electricity at their homes and their apartments. That's one thing, that Russia is striking, hitting Ukrainian energy infrastructure for quite a long time. So Ukrainians are sort of used to it already, but nevertheless it's harsh to live in such conditions without electricity and constant electricity cutoffs because of Russian drone strikes. Another tendency at the same time that Russian drones have hit railway infrastructure in Odessa region in the south. It's again one tendency which is kind of typical for the last several months already, that Russia is hitting Ukrainian railway infrastructure. And because Ukrainian railway infrastructure, the Ukrainian railways are kind of blood system of the Ukrainian state, or proper functioning of Ukrainian state. They carry passengers, they carry refugees, they carry industrial products, goods. Railways carry also military goods which are supplied to Ukraine. So it's kind of, again, to hit Ukraine hard. Is that strategy is to hit Ukraine hard and also to hit Ukrainian railway infrastructure. So Russian strategy has been very typical over the past 24 hours, hitting Ukrainian electricity, energy infrastructure, and at the same time hitting Ukrainian railway infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. And of course, over the last few days, everyone has been talking about Donald Trump and his supposedly reversed stance on Ukraine. So how do you read Trump's statement that Ukraine, with support of Europe, was in a position to fight and win back all of its territory? I mean, is it actually a sign that the US is taking a back seat, perhaps, or is it a good sign?
I think it's a good sign. I'm more optimistic than before. I think that President Trump has been extremely frustrated with President Putin of Russia. Putin let him down many times, but the peak of this kind of tendency on Putin's part was Alaska, when Trump hoped for ceasefire, at least partial, at least temporarily ceasefire, and Trump in his peace efforts dramatically failed because of Putin's stance, and Trump was very frustrated, very cross, angry indeed. And so he is now reversing his position. It's a new turning point, I would say, in American stance. There are two readings of this in Europe. One is saying that it's kind of Trump wants to put responsibility now on European members of NATO and European countries, members of the generally Europe and the EU members. But another reading of this reverse stance of Trump is saying that Trump is actually taking a new approach. Trump is trying a new strategy. It's even continuation of Biden's line to support Ukraine as long as it takes. Trump now believes that Ukraine could regain territorial integrity, restore territorial integrity and sovereignty by military force, if you want, by the efforts of Ukrainian armed forces, and even, as he put it, move further. We don't know what move further means actually, but nevertheless, it's a new stance of the U.S. administration. It's a push for peace, peace by threats, I would say. So Trump is trying a new strategy. The previous strategy of appeasing and trying to build bridges with Putin and trying to make good out of his good personal relations, close personal relations with Putin, have dramatically failed. So Trump is now trying a new strategy, kind of with strength, forceful strategy to force Russia into corner because of two tendencies. First tendency is that Russian economy and generally Russia, inside Russia, the situation is there. It's miserable. Russian economy is doing very badly. Zero growth, more than 20% of inflation. Ukrainians have been successfully hitting over the past several times Russian oil industry. Even this night, the Russian oil pumping station in Chuvastia, in the Republic of Chuvastia, quite far away from Ukraine, actually, where it was hit by Ukrainian drones. Previous nights, other oil refineries and oil installations in Russia were hit by Ukrainian drones. So Russia now feels even petrol shortages of petrol. Even in occupied Crimea, there is no petrol. Queues are long, and situation is miserable. Another tendency is that Russia has no successes on battlefields in Ukraine for quite a long time, and Russia will not be able to achieve its strategic aim to occupy the whole Donetsk region by the end of this year, or even to try to occupy the Sumy, the regional center in northeastern Ukraine. So the situation is in limbo, let's say. Even Ukrainians were able to liberate 360 square kilometers of the land previously occupied by Russia in eastern Ukraine recently, and took almost 1,000 Russian prisoners of war. So even Ukraine has small, but nevertheless successes on the battlefield, unlike Russians. They didn't achieve anything strategic, even tactical. No achievement so far for quite a long time. So these two factors in combination, the dire situation inside Russia and limbo and no Russian achievements on battlefields in Ukraine, shows that Russia is Putin is a weak state, and Trump wants to use it.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think Vladimir Putin will react to Trump's words?
So far, the Russian reaction was kind of muted. The Kremlin spokesman said that they will see and kind of they will talk. Another Russian propagandista saying kind of still want to keep the official line that America is important, that Trump's relations with Putin are important and they're good, and so on and so forth, kind of to keep Alaska spirit high. But we are seeing that Trump is frustrated, and we are seeing that even President Zelensky at the United Nations during their meeting asked privately, according to American press, the United States to supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles to be able even to hit Moscow, and so on and so forth. We'll see. We don't know. So far, Trump is not ready to supply Tomahawks to Ukraine with powerful missiles. But nevertheless, Zelensky wanted to have it just as a factor, a leverage of influence, just a kind of leverage over Russia, so that Ukraine, in theory, will be able to hit Moscow and so on and so forth.
Right, and speaking of Volodymyr Zelensky at the UN, he said that Vladimir Putin will keep driving the Ukraine war. It will be wider and deeper unless he is stopped. So Zelensky has certainly gained some momentum and recognition, but how do you think he'll be able to translate this into more support? You've already mentioned these long-range missiles. What else?
What else? Sanctions against Russia, coordination between Americans and Europeans on sanctions against Russia, secondary sanctions against those countries who buy Russian oil. And Trump was actually quite instrumental in putting pressure on a country which is unnoticed in this oil story. It's not India and China, it's Turkey. When he met President Erdogan of Turkey at the White House, Trump apparently told him to stop buying Russian oil and Russian energy, because Turkey is one of the biggest buyer of Russian oil and oil products, refined oil. And also Turks are kind of a major transit point for Russian gas, which is going through Black Sea with Turkish pipeline, Turkish Stream and Blue Stream into southeastern Europe. So Turkey is very instrumental in Russian oil export and Russian gas export. So Trump also sent this message to Erdogan to think about stopping buying Russian energy. At the same time, of course, Europeans are gearing for the adaptation of the 19th package of Russian anti-Russian sanctions, and there is a kind of school of thought thinking that Trump wants Europe to do more, and while America is staying away. It's not true. I mean, of course, Americans can do more and Europeans can do more, but I think there is a need for coordination, a partnership in the steps taken against Russia and supporting Ukraine between Americans and Europe. America and Europe should stay united in supporting Ukraine and dealing with Russia with anti-Russian sanctions.
Mm-hmm, of course. And of course, another country that keeps buying Russian resources is Hungary, right? Our defiant Hungary here. And allegedly, Hungarian drones appeared on Ukrainian territory. Can we zoom in on that incident and sort of the social media spat that resulted from it between Peter Szijjártó and Andrei Sybiha and Zelensky as well?
Yeah, apparently, according to Ukrainian General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, two Hungarian drone crossed Ukrainian airspace, the border between Ukraine and Hungary in Transcarpathian region twice. And apparently, according to Ukrainian side, it did kind of reconnaissance mission, the intelligence mission, trying to establish what kind of industrial potential, military potential is based in Ukrainian Transcarpathian region. Ukrainians accused Hungary of using drone for such a purpose. Then Zelensky accused Hungary, of course, as well. And then the Hungarian foreign minister said that kind of accused Zelensky of having anti-Hungarian sentiment yet again, as he put it. Kind of there was yet another spat between Ukraine and Hungary. Situation is there because Ukraine badly needs approval from the European Union, all member states, 27 member states, for start of for opening of the first cluster for negotiations for EU membership, and Hungary is blocking this. Viktor Orban's government is blocking this, and this incident yet another bad sign for bilateral relations between Hungary and Ukraine, and a bad sign for Ukrainian European integration because Kyiv badly needs this approval or go ahead or green light from Hungary to start to open the first cluster out of 6, which are necessary for EU membership. So it's quite a dangerous tendency for Ukrainian European integration, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Rostyslav Khotin, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Unfortunately, we have to stop here. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Sally.
And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.